This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Heart Mojo with Melinda Smith. And today we're taking a little different tour on the journey of life. And, we always talk about kindness too, but today we're going to talk about purpose. And the reason I wanted Melinda to be the guest today is that Melinda has been working in an area that is really very intense, but can also be very rewarding. And I know you love it, Melinda, because
I do.
We've been friends for about 4 or 5 years, and this is where you always want to land. You want to be around others that you can help them and guide them. And sometimes when we get in a situation like that, whether it's planned or unplanned, we don't take care of ourselves. And we forget about other purposes in life, because we don't just say that one purpose that, yes, I want to go out and help people, but that's like it's almost like an octopus. There's all these tentacles coming out of that purpose. And sometimes they sort of like latch onto each other and take a life of their own. So let's talk a little bit about the fact that you are working in a position that you love. You love the individuals that you are helping. And we're talking about the senior citizen community. But at the same time, let's be honest, have you had any time for yourself?
Not really. Not really. That's kind of been my whole existence, I think. I've always felt my purpose is to help other people. And when I was in school, in college, I thought, oh, I'm going to be a doctor. Well, that never happened. We've talked about that a little bit on previous shows. And I found a way to help others through selling equipment that was massage therapy equipment, which made them feel better, right? At the end of the day. And then I got into plastic surgery and I worked there. And I devoted the same types of hours I'm doing right now. I would start there. I started my day at 7:30 and worked many days till 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And again, 6 days a week for the most part. But I loved my job. I loved my patients. I loved what I did. And when I left to do my own company, I did the same thing. I traveled 3 weeks out of a month on the road, helping other people, training doctors, until I had my children. And then I did nonprofit work, which was also out helping others. And I would do many benefits every year, because that was my way of giving back. So that's kind of what I've always done. And now I'm in the senior care industry, and I do this every day. It's a Saturday and I just finished my day, and now we're on the podcast. So again, another long week. It's just kind of what I do. But I think you can lose yourself in your purpose if you haven't organized it, like the tentacles you were talking about, properly.
Well, and I know that a lot of people will say to me, Karen, you're so lucky you work from home. You can make your own hours. And to some degree, that's true. But when you have clients, that's not always true, because, there has to be some accommodation. If I were to tell you, Melinda, that we're only going to record your show on, the first and third Monday of each month, and something comes up, whether it be a holiday Monday or whatever, that's just not fair to you and your listeners. So there needs to be flexibility. So the reality of it is, we all are working in some industry where time just slips away from self-care. And self-care doesn't have to be hours lying out in the sun, soaking up vitamin D. Although I know if you could lie out on that beach all day long, you would do it in a heartbeat.
I would.
But when we can't do that, we have to find some sort of happy medium. And again, a new purpose, a purpose to take care of ourselves. So when you've worked in the past, you have just, you dive in head first. And you don't come up for air until either you feel like, hey, I've really accomplished what I needed to do today. Or maybe somebody pulls you back up to the surface and says, hey, I want your attention now.
Making you breathe again?
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably don't come up until I need air most of the time. And it's not even a matter of, it's not a matter of not accomplishing what you need to do in your day. I accomplish a lot in a day. It's just that there's a lot to do, and people always need things. And I always try to be there to try to help. So sometimes it's to my own detriment where not getting enough rest, I'm not getting enough exercise. So that's the fine line I walk, and I'm trying to balance. Balance is hard. Balance is hard. They always say if you love what you do, you're not really working, right? And I do love what I do. So maybe I do take that to heart, that it's not like work, like punching a time clock, going in, flipping burgers at the end of the day. That's really your time. But it's all in how you look at it, right? If you love your job and you're flipping burgers and it's what you want to do and you want to make the best burger ever, that's your purpose. You want to make people happy.
Absolutely. But I think one of the things that you and I both can agree on, because you have coached others through some of your businesses, that we have to look around us and realize that as good as we may be at doing what we're doing, the day that we step out of that role, whether it be we choose another role or we
You're let go
go
from
off
that
to the
role.
heavens above, people aren't going to remember us for all that hard work. They're going to remember us for being good at what we did, hopefully. They're going to miss the fact that we're not around, but our eulogy is not going to be, and Melinda was the greatest because she worked 80 hours a week and still had time for. And, I used to say to myself, oh, but that would be so great if somebody said that at my funeral. And then I thought, wait a second, I'm not going to hear it. And it hasn't gained me anything. In fact, it may have alienated me from friends, family, and some of the things I like to do. So I'm going to put you in the coaching role right now. And if you were to talk to Melinda and tell yourself, what you could do to find more time for yourself, can you think of one or two areas where you could say, this is what I can do and this is what I want to do?
As far as how to manage your day where you have more me time, is that what you're basically
Yeah,
asking?
exactly.
I suppose if I were talking to me, I would tell myself to schedule time during the day, at least a break. So because I work through my lunch. If I'm eating lunch, I'm eating lunch while I'm working, if I eat lunch at all. Though I do intermittent fasting, so that kind of works for me for the most part, but that still doesn't mean the time, taking a walk at lunch, listening to music, sitting down, reading a book. I love to read. I buy books all the time, but I get one chapter read, two chapters. I'm lucky if I get that far sometimes. I just don't make the time for it. So I would probably coach myself into the fact that I have to make the time. When I was a fitness coach, and that's exactly what I would tell you. You have to make 20, 30 minutes of time a day. But, like a doctor, I'm not always following my own medicine prescription. But if I were talking to me, that's what I would say. And for me, exercise actually is meditative for me. I like that. Not some people hate exercise, but for me, it makes me feel good. It builds the endorphins. It relaxes me. It gets that stress out. So I would be telling myself to find a way to reduce the stress.
And, for those listening, there's all different forms of exercise. Okay. I started a walking program 2 years ago. Last summer, it wasn't as good as was the summer before. And now I'm just like, okay, the weather is changing. I've got to get back into it. And some people like to go out and power walk. Some people actually go out and jog. Some people go out and run. I walk and I fill myself with the environment. That's my form of exercise. Number one, it lightens my brain for a little while. I'm not stopping and thinking about all the phone calls I have to make, how many podcasts I have scheduled for the day, and all the things I'm working on. I give myself that half hour to 45 minutes to listen to the birds. If a neighbor is out there, wave at the neighbor. And so for those of you who are saying, God, I hate exercise, find something that you can do that you might
Gives you that.
enjoy.
Yeah,
Exactly.
well, I just read an article actually about walking and getting out in the park or just sitting outside. That's a grounding factor. We need to be out in the earth, in nature, not just stuck in a building, not just stuck behind a computer screen. In fact, if you can take your shoes off and walk barefoot when the weather's nice, or just put your feet in the grass, that is very grounding, both physically and mentally. It makes a huge difference. So walking in nature is more than just exercise. It is a break for your brain.
And I think most of us, and especially those that have been on either your podcast or one of our other podcasts here at New Cleveland Radio, we all talk about the fact that we don't have enough hours in the day. And the funny part is when we get those extra hours in some format, I don't think we're accomplishing that much more because our bodies do become fatigued. Our brains get fatigued. I've been having a hard time sleeping. And so I've been waking up between 3 and 5 in the morning. And what have I done? Oh, I'm awake. I'm going to go sit down at the computer and get some of the work done that I didn't get done yesterday, which totally wakes me up. And then, starting around 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm dragging the rest of the day. Well, my husband last night said to me, I'm going to either put something in front of the office door so you can't get in it, or something. He said, because by the time he leaves for work in the morning, I'm standing there yawning. I want my day to be over with.
Well, you've already been up for 4 or 5 hours.
Exactly. And so he said to me, I don't care if you need to leave the room and, go lie down on the couch downstairs or, sit in a chair or, if it starts to get light outside, you put on your shoes and you go walking. He said, but please don't start your work day at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. And I know he's right, but I suspect that you do something very similar. You either get home from work and say, hey, there's just one more thing I have to check. And that's what you do. And that extends your day as well.
It does, but my days are so long in general, because I also have to drive to and from work. So
Right.
that adds to your work day. People don't take that into consideration. Now, I do use that time a lot of times to listen to music. Music is very comforting for me. It relaxes me, just like sitting by the water. I mean, my ultimate would be listening to James Taylor, having a glass of wine or a cocktail, looking at the ocean. That would be my ultimate relaxation moment. That's something as a coach I would also encourage people to do, would be to think about, what is your perfect moment? What is your perfect relaxing? Is it getting in a bubble bath? Reading a book? Is it taking a walk? Is it just sitting and chilling? Even if it's ice cream, if that's your favorite thing, it's not going to hurt you to do that on occasion, unless you can't do dairy, right?
Yeah.
No sugar, but find that thing. I'm not suggesting you go to food, but just find that thing that's your ultimate relaxation moment and try to add that in. Even if you can't do it every day, or you shouldn't do it every day, maybe you can do it once a week or once every couple weeks. And then that also gives you something to look forward to, right?
Right.
The other thing I
Absolutely.
did to get through some of the harder times is comedy. Comedy is a big thing. Laughing is great medicine. For those of you who followed the show for a while, I've done a Don't Forget to Laugh events, which gives money to the Alzheimer's. So again, still a purpose added to that. But ultimately, that has gotten me through a lot. Just comedy, just going to comedy shows, watching lighthearted things on television or programs, series, things like that. I think we give TV a bad rap, like we're just going to sit down and plop ourselves there and that's it. But I do think if it's something that makes you feel better, then there's nothing wrong with doing that.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I realize that we don't give ourselves enough credit for is sharing our purpose with family and friends. They sort of know what we like or what our path is in life. But if we don't communicate it properly, they assume that we are running ourselves into the ground. And sometimes what even though you may be working 10, 12 hours a day, okay, knowing that you have the support from friends and family while you're doing it sometimes can take that burden off of you. Um,
Mhm.
because I know for a long time, when I first started the podcasting in the house, my husband came to me one day and he said, "Well, I thought having you home, I was going to see more of you." And he said, "But every time I look, the office door is closed and I hear your voice. So therefore, I know you're recording."
Mhm.
I finally had to explain to him, you know, here's my calendar. You can have access to it. You can see what I'm doing, but this is what I need to do. And a lot of it is for my own health. And we've talked about that before, that, I saw a need for your podcast because you were reaching people on your, you know, messages that you were putting out on Facebook. People wanted
Mhm.
to hear, how did Melinda get through this? Okay. You know, my cancer, my illness, my family issues may be different, but there are ways to get through it. And I can listen to how she did it and
Mhm.
say, wow, I want to be resilient too. Let me try some of those things, or let me
Well,
think of what would work.
and the same thing doesn't work for everybody,
Right.
right? But my line was always, if I can get through this challenge, I know you can get through anything that challenges you. And that's so true. We give up, or we want to give up, and it's okay to feel that way. It's just not okay to stay there. And that's kind of was always my message when I started off doing this with fitness coaching. It was about, I know you don't want to do this today. I know it doesn't, but I promise you'll feel good when you're done. And there are days where I didn't want to do that. And I talked about it. And when I had breast cancer, I just switched it right to that. Did I want to go through that? Absolutely not. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But this was the road that I was cast on. This is what I had to work with, and I was going to do everything I could to help somebody else go down their road as well. Even if it was a fork in that path and you had this type of cancer, I had this type of cancer. And then I decided those same things work for any challenge really in life, whether it's a medical challenge or a relationship challenge, financial challenge, family challenge, business challenge. You can take all of those same things and focus it on that challenge. It doesn't have to be your health.
Exactly.
And if what I was talking about helped you today, resonated with you today, then I felt like something good came out of the not great journey that I was on at the time. And since then, I've tried to stay up on other things that happened to me, and hopefully that'll encourage other people and help them get through their situations and find what their purpose is. See, I hate to say it because I never would want to be sick, but I felt like that added to my purpose.
Well, and most likely it did. But again, that was because of the attitude that you chose to have. Okay. There are other people, and, I'm not being judgmental, but there are other people who are going through an illness. Um, and instead of trying to work through it, they sort of give into it, and then it becomes a pity party. And I understand that we all think differently. There are other outside factors that, can contribute to that. Um, I remember I had an aunt and a cousin who both had tremendous migraines. My whole life, that's all I could remember is, you know, my mother saying to me, "Oh, you're not going to see your aunt today because, she's been in a dark room for 3 days with her headache." And my cousin was the same way. Well, I was diagnosed with migraines when I was 18. And, they have not been fun. I mean, I'm still
No.
dealing with them, but I made the choice different than them. And again, I don't know how devastating theirs really were, but I made a choice right from the beginning. I'm going to work through them. I'm still going to go out. I'm still going to clean my house. Um, do I make myself worse sometimes? Absolutely. Okay. But those are the choices that I've made to
Mhm.
get through it. And so you're right. We're not all going to do it the same way. Some people are going to take that day or two to lay down with an ice pack in a dark room. Others, may do a little bit more. Others may be like me and saying, you know what, I don't know how I'm doing it. And but I'm doing it.
Well, and that's
So,
what I've always done too. Very rarely did I stay home, even during treatment. I still kept my job. I still kept moving forward. And even with the health issues I continue to have, I still push through it because for me, that's how I handle it. It's how I don't want to sit there and concentrate on what I can't do. I want to concentrate on what I can do. And in general, I've had a reasonably good support system, with family and friends. I really have. And so when I started doing the videos, the other thing with the podcast and the videos was to give some form of support. Because if you don't have any support, that makes it harder. So if I could be a little support by them listening to my situation, that's all good, right?
it
So
absolutely
support
is.
does help. But I think it's really making a choice, a conscious choice to say, today I'm going to do what I can do and not concentrate on what I can't do. Because believe me, there are many days where I wake up, the shaking that I have, it's one of those things that some days I have good days, some days I have bad days, still get up and move, still get up and do my day. I don't stay home because of it.
Well, and it's interesting because I know you've talked about your grandmother, raising you quite a bit. You lived with your grandmother, your mother raised you, but your grandmother was a great influence.
And my grandfather, right? They spent a lot of time with us.
So that generation didn't believe in I can't.
Right.
And you were very lucky that you had them there because I know my father, if I said I couldn't do something, he'd look at me and he'd say, "Why, are you dead?" I mean, I was a young kid and he would say that to
Mhm.
me and I'd go, "Well, no, but I don't know how to do it." And he'd go, "Really?" And he'd give me a couple of hints,
Mhm.
how I could do whatever that was. And, I learned from that saying, I don't want to ever say the words I can't. At least I say the words I'll try. So if I know that I don't have that background in it, I'll
Right.
try,
You
but give me a
try.
chance. Okay.
Well, you look at other people and their situation, and then you look at your own situation and you think, "Ooh, it could be worse." You know, it could be worse. My grandmother always used to say, "But for the grace of God go I." And that has always, always stuck in my head. When I see one of my seniors who's struggling, that could be me. And it might be me in a few years, or my mother, or my sister, or another family member. And so having that mindset tells me, okay, I need to be there, give the kindness. That's part of my purpose, is to spread that kindness, to spread that help, to spread the thought process that we're all in this together. The problem is we don't see that all the time. And unfortunately, today's world has really split that even more, that we're all in this together. So we have to get through it together and we can help each other do that. Right.
And, they say, you don't know what somebody's going through until you listen to them and make the attempt to walk in their shoes. And that doesn't mean that you have to know every little thing about that person, but getting to understand, you know, why they react in certain ways. And I know we've talked about this before that both my husband and my son are on the spectrum and they're totally different. They're very well, they function obviously very well, but their moods and their desires are so different that they always will say, well, my son will say, well, why does my dad, think this way? And my husband will say, why does my son think this way? And I say to them, but we all think differently.
Mhm.
We're all being influenced by so many different things. Let's not judge that we think a certain way is it's right or wrong. Let's open up our ears, let's listen, um, and let's respond, objectively. And if you don't have anything good to say, my mother would always say, don't say
Don't say
anything.
anything.
And lately I've been walking around with my mouth shut.
Well, there's so many people that aren't listened to. They don't feel like they're listened to. Used to be you could pick up the phone and you had a problem with your electric. You could call the electric company. You could call the credit card company. half the time you can't get anybody. It's all
Right.
an automated system. So we live in a world where a lot of people are very frustrated. They can't tell you what's bothering them. They can't tell you what the problem is. And so to me, that's very important part of what I do in the world is I try to listen and I try to help you come up with an alternative, an idea, or maybe I can't. Maybe it's just listening. Maybe I don't have an answer for you. But giving that person some of your time. Time is very valuable, right? We have a lot of things in life, but there's nothing more valuable than your time. And so when you give your time to somebody, you can change their whole day. I mean, just having a few minutes. I've listened to people cry on the phone when I talk to them. They're trying to find a place to put their loved one, and they're so frustrated because every door is shut. I might not be able to fix it, but at least I could listen and maybe offer some things, hopefully, that they can try to do, because I can't help
Absolutely.
everybody. But if
Well,
I can give them a little of something, then that's a good day.
well, I think, you know, what we've touched on today, and I know we'll hear very similar messages in your upcoming podcasts as well, is that having a purpose in life is very, very important. It gets us out of bed at the end of the day. It gives us something to do during the day. And at the end of the day, when we put our head on the pillow, we can at least go back and say, hey, you know, I accomplished this. You asked me before we went on air how my day was going. And, you know, I said to you, I know I've done a lot today, but I feel like I haven't accomplished a lot. But as soon as I said it, in the back of my mind, I'm realizing, wow, I did all these things.
Mhm.
And I took me time. Now, typically on a Saturday, I wouldn't have been home. I would have been working another job until about 4 o'clock. And then I would have got on the computer here and on mic and, you know, done your show with you.
Mhm.
But I knew that I didn't have to go into the other job today. And so I chose, knowing we were having this discussion, how am I going to get some things accomplished, but not being devoured by work? Because I could be. I absolutely
Mhm.
could have been.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Even
it's
today, fitting this in today, because we couldn't do it earlier in the week like we usually do.
right.
I really had to stop and say, okay, how can I take this time? Because I love doing the show and I want that. That's one of my me time things. Because people say, oh my God, you do a podcast too? How do you fit all this in your day? But what they don't understand is I really enjoy doing it. It's not work for me. It's not a negative thing. It's a positive thing at the end of the day. So fitting it in on an alternate day, this is my me time for today so far. Maybe I'll take a walk. It looks like the sun came
The
out a
sun
little
is
bit.
still out. So that's a good thing. Well, I'm hoping that your listeners will connect with us because I think there are other stories out there like yours where we feel that, you know, the harder I work, the better it's going to be. Everybody's going to love me. And I know that's not why you're doing it, but you're driven in this way. And I think that as we start hearing more stories like this, I think we're all going to have that light bulb come back on and say, "Ah, you know what? That's right. When I finish the podcast, I am going to go for a walk." Or when I'm driving home, you know, I'm going to roll down my windows and sing at the top of my lungs, something that maybe we wouldn't normally do that will give us that refreshing um, air of confidence that, hey, I can do something other than be a workaholic. And
Well, I think the challenge for the listeners today, listening to a little bit of my story and a little bit of your story, is that I'm sure that's part of their story. So the challenge is, what can you write down? And writing it down actually is a good thing because it makes it concrete that you're going to do for yourself every day, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. What can you squeeze in your schedule? And then find the bigger thing and do that at least once a week, something that you can look forward to and you enjoy doing. You know, when summer hits, I'm usually on a Sunday, I'll try to have breakfast by Lake Erie with the sunshine, an hour, hour and a half there, but it refreshes me. It rejuvenates me. So find that one thing that's rejuvenating for you, I guess.
Well, I couldn't agree more. Um, in the show notes, I will have ways to contact Melinda um, and follow her because she still does her um, little talks on Facebook Live, which I think are great. I know that you've been busy the last couple weeks, so there haven't been many, but if you keep following her, you won't miss out on those. And I'll tell you, every time I see her sitting by the lake, I think, you know, why don't I just jump in my car and go sit by the lake? Haven't done it yet, but I probably will be doing it very, very soon.
Well, I'm going to add that in. That's actually something I've been thinking about because I have been really busy. And I've had people message me and say, where are your little, 2-minute talks? And where I come up with an idea and we talk about it for a couple of minutes. So I have to get back to doing that. I have allowed work to overtake that. So I promise everybody that's what we're going to. We're going back to that. And I keep my promises.
Yes, you do. Well, have a great rest of the day. Hopefully, you'll be going home soon, which I think would be nice.
I will.
And for those of you who are listening, now it's time for you to take a break as well. Have a good day.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Thank you.